Hello, welcome back to Small Things Brought Together. My name is Robin Love, and we are in season 4 and third episode. And this brings us to Brooklyn, New York, with Cadence Giersbach. So Cadence is here with us today in her studio in Dumbo, which I had the pleasure of visiting earlier this year. Yeah, Cadence has a very interesting history. So I hope you're going to tell us a little bit about how you've come to be where you are right now. And I guess what I think about is like, I feel like it's the trajectory of your art making. It feels familiar in the sense of you created a whole life as mainly like a painter, right? And successful, and then life intervened and kind of you had to step back to tend to things, and now you're reemerging with some very different work from what you had been doing previously. So to me, I don't know, that is very rich there. I feel like there's lots to talk about. But before we get into that, Cadence, do you want to do an introduction, and what would it be helpful for people to know about you as we get started?
Well, I think you kind of summarized it pretty well, Robin. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me too. I've really enjoyed our conversations, and it's been great getting to know you a little bit. So basically, I don't know what to say for an introduction, but yeah, I did show a lot. When I finished graduate school, I kind of got all of a sudden just pushed right into showing quite a bit. For me anyway, it seemed like a lot. And I was going from project to project and doing a bunch of shows. And I designed 4 mosaics that are in New York and in Florida, and things were kind of going at a good clip. And then things change. In about 2008, I don't know if I'm sure you remember, there was the huge financial fallout, and a lot of galleries in New York closed, and the gallery that I was working with closed, and a few other things happened, which is that I had a son who was then about 3 years old, and we found out that he had a learning disability, and all of a sudden I decided that he was going to become like the most important thing that I needed to focus my attention on. So I really just spent time being a mom. And, it wasn't really just that. I think it was also that I had a lot of disillusionment with the kind of art world stuff that I was experiencing. And also my work, my work has always been about landscape, nature, place, location. Those have always been the things that I was interested in. But I look back now and I think that a lot of the reason why that work got attention is that it combined painting with digital technology at a moment when that seemed really interesting, new, and exciting. The work had photographic elements in it. So there was a lot of stuff around it that I think made it interesting to other people. But over time, when you're kind of having these different opportunities, there's a push for you to kind of continue making the same type of work. And sometimes that work for you stops making sense. So then what do you do with that? And for me, really what I needed to do was to go underground. And that's always been like a very comfortable place for me to be, hidden away in my studio, working hard and trying to figure things out. than doing it in a more public way. So I really stopped. I mean, I did all the mom stuff. I like joined the PTA and raised money for like the local school and did everything like that. And then our circumstances changed again. My son was able to get into a really wonderful school in about third or fourth grade. I can't quite remember. And all of a sudden, I felt like his needs were really being taken care of. And I started to think about, well, I'm starting from scratch again. What kind of work do I want to make for me? And that was like something really new, you know, because I felt like I'm never going to have a career again. I've dropped out so completely. I just am going to do what I want. So I started trying to figure out how to become an abstract painter, because I had always looked at abstract painting, loved abstract painting, but didn't feel like I had a really strong vocabulary for it. Like, how do you do it? Like, what color should I use? What type of mark should I use? I mean, it's all open. Whereas when you're dealing with subject matter, of course, you can have something to link onto and kind of locate the work around. So I just played. I played for like several years, making lots of little abstract paintings, painting over them. People would come to my studio, for friends mostly, and say, "What are you doing? You're just painting over the same paintings over and over again." But it was a very satisfying thing for me to go through. And at the same time, I have a very close friend who's a photographer, and she said, let's start an art group. And I think that that was also really pivotal for me, that all of a sudden we kind of gathered our friends together, and they were all women about the same age, some younger, some older, which was actually really nice to get perspectives on, you know, women's experiences at different ages. And we would meet once a month or every 2 months whenever we could. And the goal of the group was to be supportive and not critical, but just to kind of help each other get where we needed to go. And so I started doing that. And as time passed, I just got more excited about the work that I was doing, and you know, felt more supported by it. And so the past, well, I guess going upstate, and we have a place upstate, and so I started gardening. I don't know, now I'm kind of rambling, but
Please ramble.
I moved up to the Catskills part-time and started making this garden. And it was a very wild property, and I had never actually worked in a garden before. I had made paintings about nature from a vista point of view, like standing in one spot looking at nature versus actually being inside of it.
Mm.
And that was a very informative experience for me. So over the past few years, mostly because I've been upstate and partially because we were isolated during the pandemic, I started painting no longer on these little panels where I was sort of figuring out a vocabulary, but painting on large rolls of muslin. And somehow the scale shift really opened things up for me. The things that I don't like about big paintings is sort of their commandingness, their cumbersomeness, their insistence on, I don't know, being a big presence in a space. And by painting on the muslin, I didn't gesso it. I just would I would lay it out on the floor and start painting it just from whatever came up. And it was really exciting to work at that scale, and they could be thrown away because they were cheap. I didn't have to commit to a big expensive surface. And so I just started making these things. And I've always been crafty, so I started then sewing on them and kind of expanding them out that way. And yeah, so that is sort of how the paintings happen. And then now I have to go back again and say that at the same time, I was making a little bit of ceramic as I was exploring the smaller abstract paintings. And then being up in the country and not having access to a kiln or clay or anything like that, I started working in paper mache. And so the paper mache pieces have been fun to make because you don't have to fire them. I can go large, I can paint them, I don't have to glaze them. So that's where the work is right now. It's like these large paintings and these paper mache pieces. So that's the story with all of that. In a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, as you were talking, I was like, oh, there's kind of several reoccurring themes, I think, throughout the whole story, which is your life. Let me just say, it's not a story, it's actually your lived experience. I feel like, maybe you'll correct me, but there's something about like support versus critique, and kind of not wanting to make these big commanding pieces, and yet choosing a bigger scale, but a material that you felt okay like throwing away if you didn't like it, and even the like difference between a vista and being inside. So I'm here, all right, if I'm going to put a label on it, I guess I feel a move away from more masculine towards a more feminine approach.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I don't really think of it in terms of masculine or feminine, but yeah, I think it's a type of arrogance that I find really offensive. So, I mean, if you want to call that masculine energy, that's fine with me. I don't know if I agree entirely, because I've met some arrogant women too. But I do, yeah.
Well, but women can be masculine, men can be
feminine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think though that like another metaphor that I would think of, Robin, is like going underground and rising out of the ground and then going underground. And somehow, like when you're underground, or in a pod or a chrysalis or whatever you want to call it, you're able to kind of regenerate yourself. And I think that as I'm an extreme introvert, like I would be happy being underground all the time, probably. Except that I'm curious, and that's my problem, is that I'm extremely curious. So I have to poke my head out and look around a bit. So I think that that's kind of how I feel about it is, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a nurturing thing. Yeah, I think though, like there's a lot of things about society that I don't like. I feel like people could be more supportive of each other than they are. And I think that's a lesson that you get from nature, that there's a lot of aggression in like different animals eating each other and all that stuff. But there's also like a sense of things kind of having an ecosystem where there's a type of balance and I don't know, maybe it's just because we live in such a capitalist society. There's always this sense that one person has to kind of be on top of another.
Yeah. Well, I'm really struck by the vista versus being inside, and someone who sees himself as separate, therefore able to be like a witness versus actually being inside the thing itself, And, even when you started, you said you came out of grad school and kind of got, I think you even said pushed into showing a lot, which, I just like, well, I'll put a pin in that. And just to say, we met through this network group, that we both in. And the first time I met you was you were presenting I guess you were presenting your kind of situation in your work as part of like a group review kind of a thing. And so I was struck right away, like your confidence, actually. So the learning that you consider yourself an extreme introvert was like, what? Because yeah, I didn't feel that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And when you say it, it's not completely feels doesn't feel impossible, but yeah. So
Yeah.
to go back, like, yeah, I don't know, just I think the shift from being someone who's observing to someone who's inside,
Mhm.
that's a very profound shift.
Yeah, I think it is. Um, I guess I think about, maybe this relates back to your idea about the masculine energy, but a lot of times I think about one point perspective, and that has to do with the vista, where you're standing there and you're the center of the universe, and you look out and you see everything from your perspective. But when you change that perspective, or you kind of deny the one point perspective, or maybe being inside of it, so it's not about vision, you have to like activate your other senses, then the whole situation changes. And you can know things. I mean, I don't say, yeah, you just can know things that you can't know just, from standing at one location thinking about it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Since I'm not a painter, I never think about one point perspective.
okay.
But as soon as you say that, I'm like, oh my God, it is
Yeah.
taught with such authority,
Yeah.
as
Right.
if
And when you
it's
take a picture, it's the same way. Like when you aim your camera, it's really the same. I mean, it's not perfect because the lens isn't perfect, but it's kind of the same concept
yeah,
as, that Renaissance one point perspective.
wow, wow,
Yeah.
something to think about. Yeah, thank you for that. So, I'm going to share my screen. I know you're in your studio, and so some of the pieces that we're going to look at, are right behind you. But
Okay.
but I'll share my screen, and then you tell me which pieces feel important to share with more
Okay.
detail.
I mean, you can choose whatever
Yeah.
you like,
Well,
whatever you feel like you want to talk about, Robin.
well, thank you. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe it'll come up as we talk. I want to start with this one actually, which we can see behind you, and then we'll see. Um,
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that piece was, it wasn't the first paper mache piece, but it was one of the first that I made. And I didn't really, yeah, I mean, I was kind of figuring things out as I went along, and it actually has a lot of the techniques that somebody who, maybe was in grade school did, like those two forms, top and bottom, are literally made with like balloons underneath, and strips of paper mache, and then built up with paper pulp and other materials. And like as I'm working, a lot of times things are changing. Like I decide, oh, I don't like it, and this piece actually got completely turned around. It was built like literally like if you just flopped it. And the part of it that I'm the most in, it kind of has like a bug energy going on, like it's this kind of weird alien bug child. I don't know really what to make of it sometimes. But there's a part in the middle where there's all of these blue forms that are, these loops and wings and lots of different energies, kind of all looping together. And that's the part of the piece that I'm more interested in, and I'm actually trying to like utilize in other pieces that are not finished. But but there's a kind of an energy there that makes me think of like, I don't know, like mold growing underground or cave-like forms. It's dark. It's mysterious to me. And when things are mysterious to me, then that kind of makes me want to probe them more.
Your curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the blue really like, yeah, it, well, and then the pieces, the top and the bottom, you know, are so kind of formal and contained, and even the way they're painted is very careful. And
Yeah.
then blue kind of like bursts out of the center.
Right.
Yeah, feels like alien or guts coming out. But something about the blue doesn't really make them feel like human guts, you know? Like,
No, I don't. Yeah. Yeah, they could be. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but it is, yeah, it's like things breaking down. So yeah, I don't know. I
hmm,
don't really know what it is. It's like when you work just intuitively, things happen and sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I learned a lot from making it. I mean, I still feel like a lot of the things that I make, I try not to like be too analytical about it because I just like, okay, what's next?
yeah.
Like move on. But those are some of the things that I was thinking about, like the formality, like you said, of the other shapes and I think also like I couldn't figure out for the longest time how to finish the top. I had a lot of different tops. And what's nice about paper mache is if you don't like something, you can just like get like a big knife and like chop it up and take it off. And you can work in a very rough way if you want, and then repair. So the top was really just made from like making those dribble castles on the beach, where you
Yeah, yeah.
have very wet sand. So that's kind of what I decided to do for the top because I don't know, I couldn't really figure out how I wanted it to end. At one point I had one big point and that didn't really feel right. It was too, yeah. So anyway, it has these multiple points on it, like a little castle on top of it.
Yeah. Are
Yeah.
you at all interested in like paper mache as a historical material? You know, like
Oh, I
think
don't
about
know.
in the Met, there's like incredible boxes that are made of paper mache that are, beautifully.
Honestly, Robin, I really am not too aware of anything. I haven't really researched it in terms of like the material of it. It's just been sort of like this stuff that I can make stuff out of. But I will go back and look at that, because I know that
Yeah.
there's a whole history of things that have been made out of.
Yeah, I'm not saying you should be, but
Yeah,
yeah, I was just curious if that was at
yeah.
all on your, I actually so just love and appreciate that you like were using ceramic. Ceramic is requires so much, in terms of facilities and materials and yeah. And so I love that you just were like, I don't have any of that. What can I use? What's at hand?
Yeah, yeah, that's important to me too. Like the first bolt of muslin I got, I just went to Walmart and like bought what they had there because I was like, okay, I've got to make stuff. So what can I scrounge around and find?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so that's kind of how it, and I actually, yeah, I like ceramics. It's a beautiful material, but I just, it has a different, there's a different set of issues. And I think for me, like right now, I need to be more expansive with because my thinking is like there's a lot going on. And with ceramics, because it's very slow and precise, I feel like I have to hold back in a way that I just really don't want to hold back right now. I just want to like play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying the image of you with like a big knife.
Chopping it up.
Yeah. Yeah, so this I feel like is quite a recent piece.
Yeah, that's the one that I finished most recently. I have a couple others that are in process, but yeah, that one is
But
finished.
since you described the other one, and how the blue part really ultimately was what was most interesting. It's like, oh, because I see the echo of that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is a mirror in the center, if it's hard to see. And then it's a mirror that I got in a thrift store. I'd been hunting around for a good mirror every time I went to the Salvation Army or whatever. And I finally found one that looked okay. And yeah, so that has these snake forms, and I really like snakes a lot. I mean, they kind of freak me out when I run into them outside, but I like their energy. I like kind of what they do. So,
Yeah.
and then the image is reflected. The snakes kind of multiply by the mirror too, so it gets even a little extra snaky if you're in front of it.
I love snakes too. And I love mirrors too. Not I don't love looking in mirrors, but I feel like I've used a lot of mirrors in my work too. And there's
Uh-huh.
something I don't I don't know. Why are they such a draw? It's not about like I say, like looking. There's something about that replication.
Yeah, it has to do with replication. I agree with you that it's a reflection, but then it's a backwards reflection. So, I don't know, is there another world back there? It kind of shows you where you are, but then it reverses it too. So
Yeah,
intriguing.
it is. Right. And also to say, I really appreciate your website. It's very beautifully done and easy to
Oh,
use. And so I hope everyone will please check it out. It's really, really great. Yeah. So maybe I'll just scroll through and
okay.
then yeah. Um,
Yeah, so I have something to say about that
yeah.
last one with the cups. This one has 3 cups. And it has, again, kind of like, it's not really like a bug, but it feels to me like it has these 2 legs that come out. And then there's this kind of like, I don't know if you want to call it like a lot of times if you look at a leaf, it's not just about leaves, but if you look at a leaf and there are those veins, or you look at the wing of like a dragonfly, it's like this roundish form that has these lines that come through it. But I also really like art history a lot, and I think that there's a piece that I have always really liked. I think it's at the Whitney by David Smith, where he has metal, and it's like kind of a flat sculpture that's in space. And I didn't look at it directly while I was making it because I just had it in the back of my mind. But I like that idea of having like a large shape that is then kind of penetrable, like you can see through it, backwards, and forwards. So yeah, so that's what that is. And it's also a vessel. And I think that relates to the fact that, I was making ceramics, and those were mostly vessel forms. And so this one is kind of like a hybrid it has 3 cups. So it has 3 vessels, but it also is, a sculpture too.
Yeah. So that's an interesting contrast between the ceramic and the paper mache in that, in ceramic, obviously there's millennia of history of people using clay to make vessels, right? That
Mhm.
contain things. And yeah, and used by using paper, paper mache that you've painted, but like there's never going to be a function
Mm-mm. You
ever.
could you could put paper clips or something. But yeah, it doesn't really serve much function. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like referencing a vessel, but it's not a vessel.
Yeah.
Sort of, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, interesting to just, I don't know, it wasn't the first thing that has come to my mind, but I was like, oh, right,
Yeah.
like you could never pour water in
Yeah.
those. That would be a disaster.
Mhm.
So it takes that conversation off the table in a certain way, or it just shifts it, maybe it turns it in a,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, this one is like the bottom is paper mache. Well, it's like cardboard covered in paper mache, and then the top is a ceramic piece. So I guess these are kind of transitional pieces where I'm still thinking a lot about ceramics, but I
Mhm.
haven't gone like full force into the paper mache. So yeah, there's like the bottom has leaves and it's pretty representational. And then there's this like there are these spots that are like floating. Like I don't know what they are exactly. Maybe like dust or pollen flakes or little flying gnats, or I don't know what they are, but that's what's in front of the bottom of it. And then there's this big bowl on top that I made out of ceramic.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, so these are the paintings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so when I first got that bolt of muslin from Walmart, what I did is I just was like, okay, just paint. And so I just like lay it down on the floor on plastic because I don't, it soaks straight through. So you're just like in a huge puddle of mess. And I just painted these different images. And I mean, at this point, I have like a vocabulary of things that I do, like lines and bigger forms and circles and, kind of a color sensibility too. So I just draw on that. And after I had like a whole bunch of them, they're all just kind of hanging out, like I hung them up like in lines, like a clothesline. And there was this show in the city several years ago. I can't remember actually where it is, but oh God, now I'm gonna blank on her name. Suter is her last name.
I think I remember seeing images from
It
this
was
show.
it was at Paula Cooper Gallery, and I don't know why I'm blanking on her first name, but they really blew me away because they were very easy paintings. Like they were, I don't want to say like easy, like they were easy to make, but they were simple and straightforward and just there had a real immediacy to them that I really responded to. And she lived in Guatemala and would paint like outdoors in Guatemala in the jungle. And Guatemala is a place also that I've spent a long time ago, not recently. I spent a fair amount of time in, and so it's like a place I have a very strong feeling for. And so whatever. Anyway, she made these paintings that I really inspired me to just go for it as well. So I had all these big paintings, but you know it didn't feel enough. So I started adding to them. I had a sewing machine and I would kind of paint areas of fabric, different colors, and then start making parts. So they have some references to like upholstery because I mean I used to do paintings that had kind of upholstered elements to them, and so that was kind of a familiar vocabulary. And yeah, and so like also like when you start having straps and things hanging, the pieces start to kind of crawl out off the wall, and that's something I like. And I've never really been someone, I mean, I've made like rectangular paintings that hang on the wall, but I've also done like a lot of wall painting and worked with kind of stranger picture materials. Like I made a lot of plastic paintings at one point. Yeah.
Like paintings on plastic?
Yeah, paintings on plastic, upholstered plastic. Yeah.
Oh. Hmm. Hmm.
So this also is from that group where this one's called, the other one was called This Is a City, I think. And this one, I don't know, something, This Is a City.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Threshold. So it's like a doorway into another space, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it really relates to nature quite as much as the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it has it's just a, painted in one go. The middle panel is painted in one go. But it just didn't really feel like enough. And that's when I started like adding the extra stuff, because it felt like I liked the image. I was attached to it, but I wanted it to have more. And
Mm-hmm.
so somehow by like sewing, and I could interact with the image more and be like more invested in it. So that's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, sometimes when I look at like late Matisse works, I think, how was he satisfied? Which maybe feels heretical to say, but for that reason, like I want to handle them more,
Mm-hmm.
and like to just like take scissors and go like, you
Yeah,
know,
but Robin, he was like bedridden at that point,
yeah,
you know. So I mean, I don't think he had a lot of options. But he had a nice young woman with him to like hang them all up on the wall while he like pointed his stick at them too. But I know what you're saying. I agree with you. I mean, I love those late Matisse cutouts
oh
very
my God,
much,
gorgeous.
but that's not my favorite period of his work. I like the earlier ones much more, where he is really in it with them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really like I've never heard anyone else sort of say that, as you just did. Like, yeah, I just like to be in relationship for just a little bit longer.
A little bit longer. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so this one's kind of a little bit more folkloric. I mean, I always thought of it as like a rooster or a bird at the bottom, and then these kind of like dancing forms around it. Like, so it feels sort of folkloric to me. Um, yeah, and then it has these like big, I don't know, raindrops or some kind of drops hanging around it, like ears, maybe. I don't know. I mean, those are my associations, but I hope that people bring their own associations, to it. It's like it's a tricky thing. Like when you're working, you have all of this like storytelling. At least I do, like storytelling going on in my mind. Like, oh, and I'll do this and blah 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 blah. And you have this story that creates the work. But then, like maybe if you tell the story to somebody else, I don't know. I don't know. Then maybe it like blocks them from making their own story. It's just a very difficult. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess yeah. I mean, what I think is like there's a reason why we work visually,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
not writing novels or poems, and which could be seen as a little bit of a cop out of like, no, you have to be able to talk about what you're doing. But,
Mhm.
for me, like I think about everything that you've just shared, and I think, yeah, part of what I hear is like you giving yourself permission to to step away from the thing that had been popular and sought after and do what you really wanted to do, and to not predetermine what that would actually be. I mean,
Mhm.
that seems like a thread through the whole
Mhm.
everything you've seen. And so I think really what gets communicated is that it's like, oh, you've done this, and it gives permission for other people to like, don't fix on one thing and think, oh, it has to be, it should be like, yeah,
Right.
follow intuition.
Follow intuition. Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the viewer, like, I don't know, I mean, can have their own experience.
Mhm.
It's always tricky. Like, this is a question that's always alive for me, is like, how much information do people really need so they can actually enter the work in a way
Mhm.
that will be meaningful? And when does it cross a line into like, now you've just like constricted the potential of the experience?
Yeah, I think there's this really weird thing though where like people see the art as like an emblem or something for the person behind the art, and they want to know more about that individual. I don't really know exactly why. I mean, I'm victim of it too. I want to know all the stories of all the artists, that I'm interested in too. But how those two things sit together, like, the author and the object, it's like they're so intertwined.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to say about it, except it's something I've been noticing a lot.
Mm. 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 Yeah, I mean, it's just such an interesting sort of like, I don't know. I'm curious what you would say about this. Like, when, yeah, when does like the artist's biography, when is it a distraction? When is it
Mhm.
useful? When does the artist as a person, and like a person with a life and a family and when is that actually like very useful
Mhm.
and makes things more relatable?
Yeah,
um
I think it definitely does. I mean, it's something, I guess, going back to what I said earlier, that I guess it's something that's a little difficult for me, because I feel like, I really would like to just kind of put stuff on the wall or put it on a table and run away and like let it just have its own life. But, I think that there's like this really natural curiosity to, figure out or know more about where things come from.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I guess,
Yeah.
I'm also just thinking, because this is like very much on my mind right now, because of
Uh-huh.
working with people who maybe don't have a lot of relationship with art,
Mhm.
experience looking at art, especially art that might, be abstract or not look like a
Something
landscape
familiar.
painting or something like that,
Yeah.
and then there's a way that could be intimidating,
Mhm.
um, but to draw out that curiosity, right? And
Right.
and so, yeah, like, what is the what's yeah, I don't think there's one answer really, but like
Yeah,
how.
I don't have an answer. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Fair enough. Me either. Yeah, yeah.
So this is another snake. Yeah, and one of the, like, going back to the idea of the mirror, this one's actually made through a mirror. Well, it's not a mirror, but I mean, it's folded, so there's a reflection. Like, I painted some of these green forms that look like shrubs or something, and then I folded the fabric to paint the other ones, so there was this mirroring thing happening again. And then there's a pathway or a snake that runs between them.
And then
So,
there's, I don't know, I think of it a little bit like teeth, but
oh,
here
oh, I thought it looked pretty. I don't know.
it is pretty.
That's good. I like the teeth reference. That's great. I hadn't thought of that. Why not? It's a big
I mean, they're
mouse.
going this way.
Yeah, no, I see it. I had never seen that before. Good.
Yeah, or Rick Rack. That's the other.
Rick Rack. Yeah, I like Rick Rack. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of like maybe like a cover lid or something. It's not really the right size for it, but it feels more kind of homey to me than some of the other ones.
Well, it's definitely more finished, like a quilt-like finish,
Yeah,
edging and,
right.
but again, it's like a little bit like these paper mache non-vessel vessels of like it sort of references the thing, but really you would never want that like on you. You were laying in bed.
True, very true. Yeah. Oh,
So
and this is
ceramic.
ceramic. It's a big pod in the middle. And the way that I make most of the ceramics is that I make pinch pots, like large pinch pots, and then combine them. So the center is really two pinched forms that have been turned into one big pot. And I like pinching because it's a very simple way of working. You just have like a lump of clay on your lap and you just kind of sit there and pinch around until it gets to the feeling that you want.
Yeah. Yeah, very direct, really, right?
Yeah, it's very direct. And it has more feeling of touch than working on the wheel or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and the shapes can be kind of off, it's like a little less, it's more difficult, I think, anyway. So it's a little less regular. Yeah.
Pinching is more difficult than the wheel.
Oh, well, to keep, if you're good at the wheel, no. I mean, I can't do the wheel, but I mean, the wheel form is very regular
Yeah.
if if you know how to use it. But the pinched form has more like wonkiness to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a better way for me to say it. Yeah. This is another painted piece that has sewing on it. So it's called Night Swim, and this one has kind of a pretty direct experience. It's related to direct experience of like looking at the water at night and how like the moonlight or whatever kind of glistens on the water, and you can kind of see things that are in the water or imagine them in the water. I always think like water at night, like lake water, especially, which is where I usually swim in a lake, can be, or actually the ocean can be frightening too. That sense that it's still, but there's a whole world of like weird stuff down there. You don't know quite what it is.
It's true. Like it's already kind of dark, but now it's like
Yeah,
extra.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like these paintings and the sculptures too. It's like there's things that I've experienced that probably most people have experienced, like swimming at night in a lake, but then kind of taking those experiences instead of drawing a picture of, here's a picture of the lake at night, then it becomes, well, what did it feel like, And to me, this is what it felt like.
Yeah.
And the black on the sides kind of like is like waves creeping in or enveloping you. And then there's shards that are, the light glistening. That's how I think of it anyway.
Yeah. It's experience, not
Yeah. Experiential.
illustration.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this is another paper mache vessel. That I don't know really what to say about it. It's just like a lot of diamonds painted. Yeah, I don't know. It just is. It's kind of is what it is.
Yeah. We don't actually have to talk about
It.
every single one. I'm happy just to look too,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
yeah, don't feel pressure.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oops, where am I? Back here. Mm. Yeah, I mean, really, I think what you said about the capturing the experience of the night swim and the feeling of the lake. Like as soon as when you're talking about that, I can, I immediately have experiences from my mostly my childhood, that I can
Mhm.
call to mind, and feeling the like wet blackness, the sound even of
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
like sound waves, sure. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, for me, this one also calls up like there's like feeling and memory and yeah.
Mhm. This blue one makes you
Yeah.
feel like a memory? Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah. It's just a blue field, but where we are upstate, there's like I mean, it's just these are random thoughts. I don't even know if they make any sense. But there's like these farmers that come and like hay the fields. And when you're haying, there's like all of these like ropes and machinery and like just stuff. And I don't know why, like the feeling of the rope is something that I find really evocative because it's like again, it's like the snake or a line that's drawn or I don't know what it is. I just like it as it's like a drawn line maybe. But I also wanted to kind of put them in front of the painting. There's another one where they're on the side, a red one where they're on the side. And it was like playing with this idea of like subject and object, like the field is the background, but then there's this like physical rope or something in front of it. So it's like a somewhat of a dislocation, at least in my mind.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
When you were saying that, there's like a famous story, I think it's a Buddhist story of, that's designed to ask us to question what we really know. But basically it's like a man is walking down the road at night and he sees a snake in the road and he's very scared. And
Hmm.
then in the morning, he comes back and it realizes it's a rope. And so
Oh,
he's had this experience of like genuine fear. It's not fake fear based
mhm.
on this misperception of the rope as a snake.
So what are we so we're supposed to not be what's
You're afraid of
is there
snakes? No.
a moral or
I
just
think
like,
it's really just like we don't always know, like,
oh,
what is our perception? Like, are we
yeah,
sure
I
we
like
are
that
perceiving?
story a lot.
Yeah.
I would like to know more about it. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna ask you about it later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's really about perception, I think,
yeah,
and
that's
how it
great.
causes us to think and behave.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But like your association with like snakes and ropes is like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Interesting.
that's why I'm interested in that story. It's great. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, like going back to like the whole like bigger picture stuff besides like the individual things, I think that coming back to the work now and feeling like I do right now is it's a very different feeling than I felt when I was in my 20s or 30s. And like I just sort of feel like I just want to do what I want to do. Like I don't like I'm really would like people to look at the work and enjoy the work and get whatever they can out of it. But I just feel like there's almost a compulsion to just do what I want to do. And that's a very powerful feeling. It's a very good feeling. Like, and I think part of it comes from the idea like if you don't have anything, you have nothing to lose. And if you have something, you have something to lose. So, like when you have like people saying, oh, can you send us a painting, da, 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 or whatever it is, and you have like these people who are depending on you or expectations of you or whatever it is. But if you walk out of the room and you refuse, it gives you a type of freedom that you can only have from that standpoint. And that's it has its own, it has a different kind, other things pretty powerful too, but it has a different kind of a power.
Yeah.
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 So,
Yeah.
And if you feel like you want to make work, you just have to go for it, because the feeling is not, it does not last. It's fleeting, it doesn't always go on forever. And so if you feel it, you have to grab it and just go, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. So, phew, yeah, moment by moment.
Right.
Mm. Mm. I have to say, this is one of my favorites.
Oh, that one. Yeah. Why do you like it, Robin?
Why do I like it? I think it's very bold, and I'm a fan of repeated lines that are clearly drawn by hand, in general, so that we can see their inconsistencies.
Yeah.
And is it two flaps over a painted red piece? There's some dimension to it, if I recall.
Yeah, it's underneath there's a very bright red that's like I don't know if it's cadmium red, but it's close to, it's very bright, kind of an orangey red. And then the two panels are again, it's a mirror. Like you do one thing and then you try and copy it, but like you can't copy it perfectly. It's always going to come out a little bit differently, which is a good thing. So they're laying on top of it. So if there's a little wind or whatever, it flutters a little bit, and you can see that there's this other thing underneath.
Yeah, it's just very evocative to me of yeah. And I'm a sucker for fabric moving in the air.
Yeah, nice.
And red. So yeah. Yeah. I don't know, I just find it quite moving.
It's like an opening underneath. It's a veil. I mean, I thought of it as a veil, how like there's a covering, one thing covers the next, and you're not really supposed to look underneath, so you kind of imagine what's underneath. Yeah.
But this one gives you a little taste.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just really love this one.
That's a ceramic one. Yeah.
Constellation.
This is the companion for the blue one. So this is the red field. And yeah, more ropes hanging off the side. It has two suns. Some people say it's like it looks like a face, but that wasn't really what I was. I mean, it's fine if it looks like a face, but it's really about having the duplication again of like the two suns on the red field. And I painted it at the beginning of the whole situation in the Ukraine. I was thinking about like these fields on fire and things like that, kind of little bit end of the world feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ceramics. So the ceramics are much more controlled, like they just are, and they take a long time, and a lot of care.
Yeah. I like that you freed yourself. I mean, these are beautiful, of course. And I love that you're like, and may you do them again someday, right? Like,
Yeah.
but also
Yeah,
like, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a small ceramic, I mean, not ceramic, paper mache piece.
Yeah. 8 by 13. Yeah.
Yeah, small.
So like some of them are almost 4 times bigger, 3 or 4 times bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to go larger. I mean, but I mean, maybe I need to make some more small ones. I don't know. This is a painting with about stones, how the stones, when you're gardening, they rise up. I don't know where they come from. Every time you dig, there's more stones. It's just weird. In the Northeast, But if you dig up like a plot of land, this more stones just rise up. So, and that's interesting to me, you know, like what goes on down there, you know? It's like there's a lot of things happening under the earth. I mean, there's a bunch of caves in Pennsylvania that I visited, and they're just incredible.
Well, I think we talked about this, that book by
Yeah.
Robert McFarland,
Tell me again, I don't remember.
Underland.
Oh, okay. I
Where-
still have to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, he basically spends, seems like a couple years going underground in various ways and in all over the world. Like he goes into mines, he goes down into like crevices in glaciers in Greenland. He goes into catacombs under Paris. Just everything is about what the heck is going on down there.
Yeah. It's
He writes very
fascinating.
poetically. He's really,
I just wrote it down. I'm definitely gonna
I think you
find it.
will love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even sometimes he's like puts his life in danger to like get down in there. I read it and I often was like scared for him.
Yeah, I'm feeling claustrophobic just thinking about it, but you know, but I like it. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also like, having lived my whole life in the Northeast,
Mm-hmm.
you know, this thing of like you dig your garden one year and then you take out a big pile of rocks, and then the next year it's like, where did they come from?
There they are again. I know. Incredible.
It is. Porcelain. This is like a chicken.
Another little chicken. You have to have fun, you know.
Totally.
Oh, all right. This is, yeah, this is these trees waving in the I don't know what the title is, something about trees waving. I don't remember, but like this piece was made out of the scraps of another. I tried to make a large cloth sculpture that was a disaster. Like it was so horrible that I ended up cutting it all up and then using the scraps to make other things out of, which I also like too, is that, you know, to kind of, and I do it in the ceramics too. I do things and then I don't like it. And then I take that big knife that you like and I chop it up, but then I might use the part in something else so that they can be reassembled. So, you know, it just kind of keeps the flow going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is also from part of that big cloth sculpture that was taken apart and disassembled.
Yeah.
And it's called postcards, like little memories is how I was thinking about it. How you have like little moments that you know, little snippets of memory coming together. I mean, maybe I'm a very literal thinker, you know, maybe even if I'm not making representational painting per se, it's still like my mind is just very literal, I guess.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's not the thing. That's not the word that comes to my mind when I look at the word.
But yeah, but inside it's very literal. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say this looks like an earlier one because
Yeah,
you moved
it is
away
more
from this more literal.
right.
Okay. Yeah.
And that one's maybe more literal too. It's just like pretty flat. Well, they're pretty to me. I don't know, maybe someone else doesn't think they are, but they're like just flowers and things growing.
Yeah. Oh, and the installation, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
those are
helpful to see them
three.
in context of like scale and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Beautiful. I'm gonna stop my share.
So
Yeah, well,
now
thank
I can,
you. Yeah,
yeah,
nice.
that was great.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. Before we sign off, is there anything else you want to say or share or point us towards?
I mean, I can't really think of anything. I mean, you know, I've enjoyed our conversation, and I've enjoyed all of our conversations. It's been really nice getting to know you a little bit. And you know, thank you for including me in your project.
Thank you. Thank you so much.